So, what I wanted to talk about today, I guess it's why I think it's important for us not to just consume video games, but also to actually talk about them. And I think this can be somewhat equated to disputing the idea, that very deeply entrenched idea of, oh, it's just a video game. And maybe the first thing we have to do is take a step back and realize that this argument isn't exclusive to video games. People make this argument to all kinds of media out there. Oh, it's just an action movie, or it's just a superhero movie or a teen movie. It's just a romance, it's just a boy band. So, where does this argument comes from, and what is it that it actually does? What are the consequences of this perspective? So, I think the origin of this kind of thinking is intellectual elitism. It's basically a tool for intellectual segregation. It divides media into two categories: high art and low art. High art is deep and meaningful, and it has very important, very lasting cultural impacts. It helps to shape our own perspectives, our collective opinions, our culture. And low art is just for entertainment's sake. I think the further back you go in time, the easier it becomes to implement this concept and make it widespread, because the further back in time you go, the more concentrated knowledge and culture is in the hands of a handful of people. So it was more a matter of, we're thinking about this stuff and you're not. Then, as time moves on, the peasants start developing their art. It was always there, but it starts taking root. Especially after the printing press. And then suddenly you have the intellectual elite finding competition coming from, quote unquote, below. That's why you see, for example, it's just a romance. No, they're books, it's literature, it's art, but it's just a romance. Why? Because it's mostly for women, and over time it's written by women. So yeah, sure, it's art, you can read it, but it's not important. It's just a romance. Then as time moves on, we get movies, cinema, right? And if your movie isn't Oscar bait, it isn't high art. It's just for entertainment's sake. It has no artistic value. And now we have video games. But, it's just a game. And the biggest problem here, and the biggest hope, is at the same time that this ideology isn't implemented by the masses, by the common people. It's implemented by the elites, and then it's absorbed by the masses. We start seeing things this way too, which isn't that surprising considering for how long these arguments have been made. The biggest problem, because it isn't an accurate reflection of reality, and it is used for very insidious means, not a James Bond villain scheme kind of insidious memes, but the more guttural and pervasive and very realistic thing that we see spread throughout our culture, our world. And the biggest hope, because we can actually do something about it. Okay, and what are the effects? First, you have intellectual segregation. Looking at it through this lens, the cultural narrative is solely in the hands of a handful of people. People with money and the means to produce worthy pieces of art. They control the narrative of our lives. That's intellectual segregation. It robs us of that power, and we do have that power. We're just not realizing it. All media matters. All art form matters. They all help to shape our conscience. They all help to shape our collective perspective of the world. They all have a very big lasting impact in our culture. And by not realizing that, we are giving them the power over our media. When you say, oh, it's just a superhero movie, suddenly they can use that kind of movie to push their agendas, to push their mentality into our lives. It's very a slow and methodic process, and I say that it's insidious because it's hidden in plain sight. These movies and these games, many of them may not have a blatant, deep message or commentary on social, political, economic issues. They don't wear these messages on their sleeves, but they are there. And they drip feed these messages into us. So, no video game is just a game. They all matter. And we have to realize that. We have to start taking them more seriously. I mean, yeah, it's entertainment, it's escapism, we do it for fun, but we have to be aware of the social and cultural impact that our games have in our culture. We have to take that power back from them. That's one of the reasons why I'm always talking about narrative in games, because even the shallowest of narratives can have the deepest of meanings. It can have very pervasive messages embroidered into them. And it doesn't have to be on purpose. So many cars. And it doesn't have to be on purpose. Let me make that very, very clear. I'm not trying to place blame on the artists, on the game developers. I'm just trying to realign our perspectives about the medium. And I don't care how non-narratively driven your game might be, it still has a narrative. When you're playing Counter-Strike, it's not just a bunch of colored pixels against a bunch of differently colored pixels. It's terrorists versus counter-terrorists. It has a narrative driven by violence, and it may not provide a lot of context, but we derive that context from reality, from our world. When you play a Call of Duty game or a Battlefield game set in World War II, it doesn't have to explain you who the Nazis are. It doesn't have to explain you who the Allies are. You know it. You know who the Nazis are, right? So it has a narrative. And collectively, all these games together, all these movies, and individually they may not have much to say, but collectively they do. And we have to pay attention to what they're saying. We have to pay attention so that we don't let them influence us in a way that we wouldn't normally want to. And that so that we can push for better games. We can push for more, responsible mentality during the creation process of our games. Just better games in general. So yeah, no video game. It's just a game. See you around. Can you hear the car noises? I was supposed to record at night after work yesterday, but I was so tired I had to sleep. Now I'm doing it in the morning. There's a lot of cars, traffic, birds, planes. I don't know if the microphone is picking it up or not. It's a test drive. Also, I don't really have a desk for my computer. There's no easy way to set up the microphone with the camera. So I'm just using the webcam's microphone for now until I can get a better setup, an actual desk, an actual chair, I don't know. I hope it's okay. Hope it sounds okay for now.